Okay, well, hi everyone. It's great to finally be in this Zoom room with the senior leadership of academic affairs, and I know how hard you've all been working to keep the students' education as good as it can be, to help faculty as they make that happen. And just in general, keeping the university open and going. But how's if I said to you, what's your overriding impression of COVID-19? What one word or phrase would you use?
Intense.
Intense. It sure has been intense. That I can say. Anyone else?
Challenging.
Intense, challenging. Boy, it sure has.
We say every day is a Monday.
Yes, and today is a Monday, but it does feel like every other day. It does feel like that. There's kind of lessening on a Friday, but mostly every day feels the same. Every day feels intense and challenging. Jody, you're probably too busy to even come up with an answer, but I'm going to insist
I can't come up with one word. It's just like never-ending problem solving.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is that. You know, I was speaking to Jane about this the other day, and she was saying maybe more hoping than reality, but she was saying, don't you think things are settling down a bit? And I said, not really. They seem to be even more complicated and difficult every day. Juliet reminded me actually that we haven't introduced ourselves, perhaps because we know each other so well, but I think everyone knows me. I'm Provost Jersky, and I'm the provost, and I'm one of the members of this great team. So let's just run through with more or less what we do officially at any rate. So, Jody.
Hi, I'm Jody Cormack. I'm Vice Provost for Academic Programs and Dean of Graduate Studies.
Terrific. Dhushy?
I'm Dhushy Sathianathan. I'm the Vice Provost for Academic Planning.
And Kerry?
I'm Kerry Johnson. I'm the Associate Vice President for Undergraduate Studies.
Fantastic. And Kirsty?
Hi, I'm Kirsty Fleming. I'm the Associate Vice President for Faculty Affairs.
And so you've met now the 5 people who kind of make academic affairs run smoothly. And where we don't, it's my fault. So, so in terms of COVID-19, intense, challenging, stressful, every day is Monday, and never-ending work. Has anything gone well?
I can say that academic student support services, I think, have gone pretty well. I think after we got through that first week when we made the transition to alternative modes, the tutoring that I've heard about has been going well. The students and the tutors have been really working well together. Advisors, I think, have been doing a great job. So I think that in many ways, student academic support services can lend themselves to alternative modes, online, Zoom advising. And I actually see us maybe incorporating some of these, not to replace face-to-face eventually, but certainly to supplement them, because I think that students are finding that they are being met where they are, when they are, that it actually is increasing some of their access. So I would never want this to replace face-to-face in student academic support services, but I think it's proving to be pretty successful so far and will be a good supplement.
Yeah, it's fascinating that it's what I find about so many of this is the glass half empty, glass half full story. So we've heard from some of our faculty how interesting they've found remote learning and some new things that they've thought might be useful. Again, not that it would replace face-to-face teaching in the long run, but that there's some useful things. And similarly with students, some students have said, yeah, they love it. They love spending more time having interrelationship discussions with faculty as opposed to factual ones. So very interesting.
I think the changes has been challenging, Brian, but you know what has surprised me is among the amount of work that we have ahead of us and the unknown road to this journey is that our faculty have really stepped up and our staff have really stepped up to serve the students, and this has really been eye-opener to me in many ways. We have over 160 staff in enrollment services and maybe another 25 or so in IR and budget and so on and so forth. And most of them are, in fact, almost all of them are working from home. And yet, they're all focused on student success. They're all focused on ensuring our students graduate, our students are able to meet the deadlines for credit, no credit, all those changes that we have put in place. It's just unbelievable that we're able to retain this pace of change with all of them working from home and yet meeting student success goals. And this has really surprised me to some degree, but it has really pulled all of us to push in the same direction. So I'm truly impressed with that change.
Yeah, I think that you've hit the nail on the head there, Dhushy, and I'm so pleased you did, because if you think about it, and I have actually been thinking about it across the nation, is there any group of professionals or workers who've been asked to keep going with what they're doing while changing the way they do it in a week and yet more or less succeeding? And I think really not, other than teachers, instructors, lecturers, faculty. Most of us have made much less polished changes. So like you, I'm in awe of what the faculty have managed to do. And of course, our staff are equally wonderful. Naturally, so are our students, and naturally, so are you. If you think about what all 5 of us were doing 3 months ago and what we're doing now, I don't think any of us would have imagined this in our perhaps worst nightmares. So sort of on that note, what might stay in future? Let's assume we go back to relative normality. What things have we learned that will stay? Kirsty, Jody?
I think you alluded to a little bit earlier, we've made such a quick switch to teaching in alternative modes, and we still have a lot more to learn about how to do that effectively for everybody. But I think some people are really enjoying this switch. Some people aren't. But the recognition that this fits different needs for both faculty and students. That once we're back to the point where we have an option of what sorts of modes of delivery we have, that I do think we'll see more of these modes of delivery moving forward, the alternative modes. In addition, kind of alluding to what Dhushy was talking about earlier about kind of everyone working together, I've been spending a lot of time working with senior staff, with deans and associate deans, with enrollment services, with academic senate, to look at all of the policies and procedures we have, and the number of exceptions that we're giving out this semester to those policies and procedures to ensure students can succeed is really important. And everyone has just collaborated with the one thought of what can we do to help students during this time. And I think that we'll need to look back at some of those policies and procedures as we move forward, and maybe some of those can continue in some ways. As long as they are there to ensure student success, that really should be driving what our policies and procedures are about.
Right, and what's interesting about that observation, Jody, is that it very much ties in with what the chair of the Academic Senate has already stated to be one of her goals, which is to relook at some of those policies and procedures and see if they need to be updated or changed or removed or perhaps added to. It's, I know that one thing we're planning to do, which I think everybody knows, I hope everybody knows, is that we're not going to be sort of leaving faculty just to try and do what they can do as best they can without any help. We're planning an extensive series of professional development activities in the summer for all faculty, for which faculty will get compensated. But I think that's a very important part of what we're changing to move forward with in the fall. And I know that Kirsty has been quite centrally engaged in that in her role as really focusing on the professional development of faculty. So Kirsty, your thoughts about that?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One is that this situation we find ourselves in, one of the things that's known is that exacerbates inequities, right? So one of the ways that we're thinking about professional development is making sure it's explicit in there. What difference does this make? So, for example, there was an article that went around recently that women are now publishing, women faculty members are publishing at much lower rates than their male peers, right? So we're looking at the professional development in ways of how do we make those inequities explicit and how do we address them? And then we're also focusing on what I'm going to talk about is new, right? So we have a new group of faculty members coming in the fall, both lecturer faculty and tenure track faculty. And then we have new department chairs. So what kind of professional development are we going to design to help them to feel connected to the institution, to transition to their roles, given that they're doing it in a way that's not like anyone else has done? And then I think the other piece, which I think Jody might be better equipped to address, is the professional development that will be offered throughout the summer so that faculty members will be prepared to offer their courses via technology in the fall.
Sure. So we're looking at developing some faculty development and really trying to build a group of faculty mentors for all faculty. And focusing on a lot of the things that our academic technology services has already done such a great job building resources. And so now looking at, well, how do we deploy some of those resources based on specific needs? So things that people struggled on this semester. I think that we've identified a lot of the basics in terms of how to make the transition. Now, how do we take it to the next step? How do we deal with the students that are having some of those issues because they have technology issues, because they have different learning needs, because they have different responsibilities at home now that they didn't have before. So how can we do that? How can we differentiate how we teach based on the type of class it is? How can we do more in terms of building community in some of our alternative settings? So those are all the sorts of things besides the technology support that we're looking to try and build into a lot of our summer development to help it seem like more of that personal environment that we get on campus, even though we're using alternative modes.
And I think that actually relates back to something that Dhushy said, which I know we all feel, but nobody is doing this across the university with technology as an end. Mm-hmm. Technology is just a means to an end. And we know that it may in fact not be the best means to the end we want, which is student success and student achievement. But we're doing it within the constraints we have, and we do the best we can. Another example of technology being used to try and make a community, welcome a new community, is the new SOAR structure. And I know that Kerry has a little bit of detail about that, but in fact, it's quite a good story, I think, especially in relation to the great cooperation between the Division of Student Affairs and the Division of Academic Affairs. So tell us a bit about that, Kerry.
Well, I think it's interesting, Brian, that you brought up that technology is a means to an end. And I think we've been, we've now really revised the way that we do SOAR as a result of being online and being in alternative modes. But we revised it in a way that we kind of wanted to do all along. And that is, we're kind of separating out advising. Advising is being done before the actual orientation that is being done by student affairs. And then this is what we've wanted to do anyway, so that down the road, orientation can be a more robust, interactive day for the students, and the registration can be done beforehand. The situation has kind of forced us into that model in many ways, but I've been amazed again at how people have collaborated. Enrollment services in particular has been incredible. Student affairs and the advisors have really been working overtime to figure out how can we do this so that students get the classes they need, they're registered, they feel confident about their schedules, they're excited to come. And then student affairs does its presentations and connects with the students and talks to them about all of the things they can be expecting in the fall. And the students get the information and the kind of connection to the campus that they need. And I think that this separation going forward, even when we don't necessarily need to do it all online, is going to make the whole program fit students' needs much better. We think it's going to be much more engaging overall, and students are going to find it to be more satisfying. So that's definitely one of the situations where technology is a means to an end, and it's something that we may want to retain, at least this model, if not the intensive use of technology, once we finally return to normal, whatever and whenever that is.
Brian, you were saying, earlier on, what is going to stay and what's going to not stay, and reflecting on it, one of the things that I've noticed is that under these extreme conditions or extreme constraints, we tend to go back to our core values of what we need to do, and I see that those values being played out in many of our actions in terms of building community, student success, resilience. Those elements are inherent in many of the things that we are putting out, and it plays out much more vividly in this space when you're trying to design under constraint, because there you're going back to asking the question, what is absolutely critical that we need to accomplish so that we don't lose our eye on the ball? And that aspect of it is clearly evident because you're focused on that. And we always say in engineering, design under extreme constraints is when your innovation thrives. And so here, most of us are in that space. Yeah, actually, every constraint that we knew of in the past is now challenged. So I think most of us are being innovative. Every one of us. I'm talking about students. I'm talking about faculty. I'm talking about staff. All of us are innovating in our spaces. And some of those innovations will remain with us longer than this time, hopefully. And there are others you'll find out are probably useless. You're muted, Brian.
I agree, and it's quite an interesting issue. I was speaking to our CFO this morning, and he was saying that he got a panicked phone call from his colleague at USC, and USC is suddenly having to deal with something which they've never dealt with before, which is a reduction in tuition coming in. And I wouldn't say we're used to it or we enjoy it, but we know about cyclical ups and downs. And so in the CSU, I think we actually are quite creative. And if you think about how much we as a collective body achieve with the really minimal resources we get, it's quite remarkable. And I think it's part of that. Mm-hmm. When you're, nothing concentrates a man's mind so much as the thought of imminent execution or something like that. And so in a way, that's where we are. Our minds are concentrated. So So just very briefly, I think we sort of have fairly firm plans for the summer, that the summer will be entirely online or remote. Some of it will be formally online, all of it will be remote. We have pretty much certainty about what's going to be happening in the fall, although it's not really official yet. But Jody, can you sort of tell us which way we're concentrating?
Yeah, for fall, we're really looking at continuing to have those courses that were moved to alternative modes of instruction in spring. Those courses will most likely continue in a similar format for fall. What we'll do for fall is try and bring back some of those courses we had to cancel this semester that required in-person on-campus contact. And even those we'll try and bring back in more of a hybrid format to see how much they can still do off campus, to really bring as few people as possible onto campus to maintain the health and safety of everyone on campus and coming to it. So still trying to offer more than we were able to this semester once we switched. And then what we are offering in a distance mode will be, I think, much more better planned out for what we're doing in the fall.
Thanks. That's very helpful, I think, for everybody. And, you know, one of the things that, again, how do we demonstrate our focus on student success? Well, before anything can happen, people have to be healthy and well. And we want our students to be healthy and well. We need our staff and faculty to be healthy and well. And given the scale of the pandemic, that's not easy to do. So sometimes we have to be a little bit conservative rather than a little bit risky, because we're risking people. And when one is doing that, you want to be as conservative as you can, because our people are our strength. So you should all be hearing, we should all be preparing for an unusual summer, an unusual fall. And yet we think we're getting better and better at the alternative modes of instruction that we've been forced into. What do you think some resources might be for faculty, students, staff, to help us all prepare for this unusual fall? What would you suggest, or what would you suggest that we look at acquiring or redeploying in some way?
I can say a little bit about some student support videos that have been made that just showed an amazing amount of initiative from some of our staff in the Learning Center and our Gen Excel first generation mentoring program. The people who were working on those programs decided that without any inquiry from me or anybody else, that really students needed to understand how to make the transition to alternative modes. They needed to understand how to be successful in alternative modes of instruction, and they needed to understand how to do final exams. And so they partnered up and they created some videos about just those topics. We've shared them on the provost message previously, and I've shared them with associate deans to distribute to faculty, and we want to make sure students are looking at them. Apparently they've gotten a lot of hits already, but I think these are the kinds of things that show innovation among our staff and initiative. Our staff just realized that students really need to understand these things, and so they created these videos on their own, and we've now pushed them out, and I think we can continue to use those, and we'll continue to talk about what other kinds of videos, modules will be useful for students in particular, because that's sort of my focus right now, but what kinds of other modules, videos, sort of online activities can we do to continue to engage students and help them make this transition successfully to online learning?
I think what you've said there is so powerful for me, because what I like about it is that it means that you, and I hope all of us, I believe all of us, have created space for people to feel empowered to make the necessary changes. because of course a top-down kind of we or I or Jane is thinking about all the things that need to be done is obviously not possible. So the more that our community as a whole feels empowered to identify weaknesses, vulnerabilities, what can be changed, some things may work, some things may not, but many things will, and that's a wonderful kind of empowering and I think enlightening. It's enlightening because it reveals to us the depth of talent in our community, not just in our faculty and students, but also our staff.
And I think it gets back to what Dhushy was saying about our core values. Our academic support staff is completely devoted to students, and they could figure out, you know, based on all of their own experience, what the students need, and they just went ahead and created what they could to support them. So to me, that just shows that they're always trying to think about the students and what kind of support the students need and what they can do to improve the experience for the students. So I think, again, that's just getting back to our core values and our commitment to student success.
I'll tell you a sort of great story, and then I'll go back to you, Dhushy. But today I had a meeting with our prep fellows. And for those of you that might not be familiar with that, that is UC Irvine PhD or postdoctoral students who are coming onto our campus for a semester to see what a comprehensive university faculty career might be like. And all three of them said how unbelievably impressed they had been with our faculty's devotion to student success. And they contrasted it unfavorably with the situation at both their previous undergraduate institutions, but especially at UC Irvine. They were impressed with how faculty had managed to establish good educational relationships with their students, even in this difficult environment. So I think, again, back to the core values, we're a quite remarkable institution, really. Sorry, Dhushy, I interrupted.
I was just going to reflect on what is our preparation as we go into fall that earlier on you were inquiring about. What is interesting through all of this is that if you look at the number of students who are planning to graduate this spring, that number is about 3 or 4% higher than last spring. I mean, normally one would anticipate that that number would erode away as we get closer and more people might stay for fall. If you look at our withdrawal rates are holding steady. In fact, it's slightly less than last spring. What that tells us is that our students really want to remain in the academic program and really go to the finish line, and faculty are determined to ensure their success. So knowing that frame of thinking that audience, that group of students and faculty are resilient to go forward, planning for fall is even more upon us in terms of ensuring that we prepare well. And so I think all of us are in our own ways ensuring that faculty have the right resources to prepare this summer, whether with financially or otherwise, to take time to ensure we build the capacities we need to do. We need to make sure our staff are able to deliver the kinds of services that we need remotely and still build community and ensure the services are seamless. So I think all of that has to take place. And so the work before us is still daunting, but I'm pretty confident we'll all step up to it, and we are at this point. I'm confident we will step up to it. You're muted, Brian. Sorry.
I think I would go further. I told you I've never done this Zoom stuff before. I think I would go further than that and say I'm 100% confident that we can do it. It's just we're an almost uniquely well-prepared community for this kind of disaster, and that's not to say I'm pleased or happy that we're facing this disaster. It's obviously awful for all of us. But just that the university as a whole has the right values to pivot in the direction of solving or resolving the situation, which is really great.
Can I add to that? You know, I was listening to Dhushy. I'm the newest member of the group, and that's one of the things that I look at is the way that everybody kind of comes together and helps each other. There's, you know, it's a really supportive, collaborative environment. I think that's around the core values. And one of the things I was thinking about, because, you know, my world is predominantly faculty members, and it's really about supporting faculty members so they can do their best for the students. And we have, you know, almost in place professional development that's going to help them prepare their classes. But as this situation goes on, that other aspects of their work could be adversely affected, right? So for some people, it's going to be difficult to maintain a scholarly agenda, right, while you're at home or social distancing. So I think one of the things we are beginning to think about in terms of supporting faculty members as well is, you know, what is the impact on the other areas of their work, often in which they include students, and trying to make sure that they're not, there's no negative consequences on them. So allowing faculty members to choose to extend the probationary period by a year is an example of something we've done to help faculty members, but we may need to think about more if this situation keeps going.
I agree, Kirsty, and you know, one of the things that you talked about was collaboration, and I think we have actually demonstrated collaboration, not only on our team, which of course we have done, but also across divisions, and in particular in our shared governance structures, where faculty have been contributing to very good discussions in the Senate. Faculty councils have been having great discussions about pedagogy, about research and scholarly activity, about service in these troubling times. And all in all, I think that kind of collaborative problem-solving attitude is very characteristic of Long Beach. So one of the things that I think of over and over, and of course, as I get older, it gets further and further back, but remembering my first day on campus as a student. And, you know, it was just after the destruction of Babylon and so on, but no, it was a long way ago, but I still remember it. It's going to be so different for the students who come to our campus in August, the end of August and September, and yet they won't have anything to compare it to. So it's going to be both new and different, but also that's what they'll see. How do you think we can work together as a campus to build community with our students and our faculty, new faculty, as they come to campus?
Well, I know that Student Affairs is still going to plan its week of welcome. It will be a virtual week of welcome, but it will include many of the student services on their side of the house. It's also going to include, I think, the University Writing Center, the Learning Center. People will be involved in that and talking to students and showing them about all of the support services that are available to them. So that will happen just as students are coming to campus, whatever that, right, virtually coming to campus. But I think that everyone recognizes that we need that outreach to students and we need that connection, and we need to make sure that they understand what resources, what activities, student government, they're all still available. They're all going to be up and running. And we want to make sure that students understand how to connect and to become engaged, even though it seems like we're all far away from one another. So I know that's one sort of event that's being planned as a way to connect to students that cuts across, I think, the divisions.
And I think faculty is also planning sort of virtual welcomes, if I'm not mistaken, Kirsty.
Yeah, I actually think it might be interesting to ask some of the incoming students and incoming faculty members how they think we should do it, right? Because I think we have to bear in mind that they're of a generation that's different than us, right? The new faculty members are a different generation from us, and the new students are a different generation from them. And they grew up more in a world where quite a lot of community was through technology. So they may actually have some ideas, as opposed to us sort of thinking about what is it that might work for them, that maybe we should be asking them, what is it that would work for you, right?
And so again, that kind of what you're illustrating perfectly is that we're not at all a top-down team where we kind of come up in dark, smoke-filled rooms with good ideas and then send them out to be destroyed on the battlefield, but actually ask the people who we are lucky enough to serve for input and collaboration and contact and discussion. So one of the things that I'd like to invite anyone who's watching this webinar with is, if you have ideas about students, faculty, or staff and things we can do to help, please let any of us know, and we'll see what we can do to make that happen. Because without your good ideas, our good ideas aren't sufficient. I would also say, and this is a personal saying, that many of the things that this great team of mine does, Jody, Kerry, Kirsty, and Dhushy, many of the things they do are unsung and unthanked. But I would like to, I'm not going to sing, don't get too worried about that, but I do want to thank them for their incredible work in keeping the bureaucracy rolling, keeping us paid, keeping us well-financed, keeping things running in RTP and other grooves, keeping the students welcomed, keeping the advisors advising. The list is really endless, and I won't bore you with everything that people have been doing, but it is thanks to this great team that it's all happening. So thank you very much. Do you, the four of you, have any ideas or advice for anyone listening for what they can do to help you or help themselves or help our students? Anything that's kind of come to you over these last terrible 8 weeks?
I think when all this first happened, one of the things people were saying to each other is be kind to others and be kind to yourself. And I think we've done that, and I think we've seen that in action. Just the patience that you know, we'll learn from what we've done, and we'll improve, and just appreciate everyone with their patience and their kindness as we do that.
And I think I would say that people should sort of, and many have, assume the best, right? Because things are rapidly changing. Even though people try and communicate what's happening, things can change very quickly. Communications can get mixed up. So if something looks odd or doesn't make sense, ask rather than assuming that it's something that's, you know, nefarious or negative. Just, you know, ask your chair, ask your faculty member, ask your dean, ask one of us, right? Get clarification, assume that the intent is good, because based on my experience, the intent is good. So
I think so. I think that's right. Good. So be kind. Don't be overcritical. Assume the best. Anything else, Kerry?
I would say continue our collaborations. To be honest with you, that's been a source of relief for me. I mean, nobody can do any of this alone, and to be able to continue in a spirit of sort of just shared hope that you know, we're going to do the best that we can for our students is actually really inspiring to me. It's one of the reasons I came here. It was something I sensed in my interview, well, those many years ago, that people really do pull together to do what's best for our students, and they collaborate well. And when that happens, then we can do a lot of problem solving together. And so I would say that's been again, a sort of nice sort of outcome in some ways, or an input. I'm not sure which it is. We have to do it in order to get good outcomes, but it's also an ongoing, I think, mode of being, which is to continue to collaborate well on many, many issues that are arising because of COVID and beyond. I think it makes it a good place to work that we can do that so well together.
That's great.
So I would say that, Brian, that, our students, faculty, and staff are challenged in many ways, not just what we do here at work, but in their own lives too. I'm sure there are many challenges as a result of this. But what is important to note is that this leadership team, along with the our leadership team in the CSULB, is that we are focused on ensuring that we ease the pathways for our faculty, staff, and students as much as possible to ensure that we can navigate through these difficult times. But I think I'm confident that all of us are on board in ensuring these pathways are streamlined as much as possible.
It's great when I look at what you all said, and of course, both thumbs up to everything, but I mean, the words that came out. And so what I want to pass on is to the students who are going to be joining us in the fall. And remember, we're excited. We're looking forward to seeing you all. And we've got a whole world to show you and explore with you. We want to be kind to each other. We're assuming the best about everyone. We're continuing our collaboration in the spirit of hope. We all are facing challenges, but we're all here to support you and make you your best. And we look forward to your support to make us our best. So it's pretty difficult to get more positive and more exciting than that. Students, we're all facing a whole new world, but we're doing it together, and we're doing it with enthusiasm, with excitement, and with joy to see you all with us in the fall, because that's why we're all here. Only reason we're here is because of the students who we're serving now, in the summer, in the fall, and in future. So it's indeed true.